All right. Good morning. I'm back. Master Motivation Podcast is back live. And today I had to start it off with an amazing guest. Let me introduce you to Master Tom Bloom, Grandmaster Tom Bloom, who is a 9th degree black belt in American Tang Soo Do and an 8th degree black belt in Suh Do Kwon Kung Fu. A 5-time international champion, former co-captain of the 1984 USA karate team. Grandmaster Bloom has trained law enforcement, taught self-defense seminars, and even worked in Hollywood as a SAG actor. As a founder of the Yonggan practical self-defense system, he has transformed martial arts by bridging traditional techniques with modern-day applications. A true legend in the martial arts world, he has promoted over 400 black belts and coached 28 world champions. Now serving as the head instructor at Pride Martial Arts, Grandmaster Bloom continues to inspire and lead by example every day. I am so excited to have you on, sir. Thank you for agreeing to be here today.
That's quite an intro. Thank you. It's great to be here. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you. And guys, if you are watching, do me a favor, just drop me a quick comment so I know who's out there. Would love to answer any questions that you have because near the end of this interview, would love to open it up for a little Q&A. I've got at least 10 good, solid questions for Master Bloom today, and we're going to try to get to all of them, but I want to answer your questions if you're watching here live. And do us a favor, please share this podcast right now so that everybody can check it out and watch it with us. So, for those of you that don't know, I started training in martial arts back in 1985 with Grandmaster Dennis Ichikawa. And as I went to tournaments, I would see Master Bloom, and I was always truly in awe, and I always looked at you as like the Tony Hawk of sport karate, and so it's kind of surreal to me now after all these years to have some really great conversations at the tournaments, the different schools, and just get to know you on a different level. Because when I was a kid, I was looking up big time, and I'm still looking up.
You were really great. It was wonderful to watch you coming up the ranks, and also as a competitor, you did fantastic. It was, and I'm really glad we became friends later on when you got older. But yeah, you were just a kid when I first met you.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of good times at those tournaments. My favorite tournaments back in that day was the SCKL, right? That was like the big thing here in our area. You and Mr. Peoples and Mr. Poet, Bill Parent, Dan Anderson, I think Farbors was all involved. Yeah, so that was a good time. Yeah. I know you and I have talked about bringing this back in some form, in some way, at some time, but we'll save that for another conversation. I want to jump right in and let you kind of open up, because this first question might take us a little while. It might kind of help give a little bit more insight as to who you are and how you got involved. But your journey in the martial arts spans decades. What initially has inspired you to step onto the mat, and what has kept you going all of these years?
That's all. Yeah, it's going to be a long answer. I grew up in Laurel Canyon, Hollywood Hills, and Hollywood Hills in the 1960s and early 70s. It was a completely different place. It was a lot of artists, a lot of culture. I got involved in yoga when I was in kindergarten, and the teacher liked me because I could do everything, and they had me demonstrate and stuff like that, which was pretty cool. At the same time, I was doing gymnastics at the Hollywood YMCA. So that took up a lot of time. I had two brothers. I have two brothers. They were both really great athletes. So I have to actually credit my mother for the success of all of us for the martial arts, because she had to drive us everywhere. We were full-time athletes, and we would just all year round. So she would take us from place to place. I think it was just before Enter the Dragon, Kung Fu, the TV show Kung Fu came out. And in the Hollywood Hills, a lot of people were teaching Kung Fu. And I really wanted to do it. But my mom didn't want me to do it. She said, "Oh, Tommy's dangerous enough. He doesn't need martial arts." It was a long time ago. And what happened is one of my good friends, his brother taught Kung Fu. And when I would go to his house, which was quite a lot, his brother would teach us Kung Fu lessons. So I started Kung Fu at a very, very young age. So I had that opportunity. Later on, we ended up moving from Hollywood Hills to the Valley. And in the Valley, I didn't have many friends. We just got there. And I was just starting, what they call it middle school now. I was just starting junior high school. And the friends that I made, they all took karate. They all took karate at Chuck Norris Karate Studio. There's this one guy named Jay Sirkin, another guy named Kelly Cook, and then little Philip Paley. Philip Paley was one of Chuck Norris's first black belts. And I remember they were talking about karate, and they were saying, you should really come down and try it out. And I was really excited because I always wanted to do official martial arts. So I went to the school. I went down to Chuck Norris Karate Studio, and I remember sitting there and I was watching the class, and I was so excited. I wanted to jump out on the mat. I just wanted to like get out there on the mat and start doing karate. And I was sitting there watching, and one of the instructors, Harold Gross, was teaching the class. And one of the instructors, John Matthews, comes out and he's like, hey, are you interested in doing karate? And I looked at him and I said, no. Because as a karate student, I was embarrassed. I didn't know what was going to happen if I said yes, but I really wanted to do it. So he goes, okay, well, He says, so, okay, if you change your mind, let me know. And I said, okay. So I sat there, I was watching the class, and a couple minutes later, he came out and he handed me this certificate. And the certificate was for 1 month of free karate lessons. And it was like a little orange certificate. And I took that thing, 1 month of karate. And for me, it was like the golden ticket. I was so excited. I ran home, and it was the beginning of summer. I think I had just turned 14 years old. Or no, I was just about to be 14 years old. And it was the beginning of summer, and I took every class. I took morning, afternoon, and evening class every day for a month. So I had about 38, 40 classes in 1 month.
Wow.
And yeah, they let me test for my first belt. And I remember taking the test. I was so excited. I prepared for that test so hard that I was sitting there waiting to come up. I had just done my form, and I'm sitting there down watching, and I couldn't remember if I did my form or I visualized my form. I was that prepared. And so after I tested, there's about 12 of us, and they lined us up for promotion about a week and a half later. They used to make us wait a long time. They lined us up, and I was kind of in the middle, and they start calling everybody up and promoting them. And we're in Chumbe stance. Well, this like 12 students, right? And they call this person. They skip me. They go on, and they're doing it in order. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I failed this test. And I remember thinking in my head, in Chumbe stance, I remember thinking, well, whatever I did wrong, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to make this right. I love this. This is something that's for me. It must have been my front stance, I was thinking. So I sat there in Chumbe stance, and then they called me up, and they skipped me a belt. And back then it went white, orange, purple. It didn't go white, purple, orange. So it skipped me to purple belt after a month, which was really cool.
Yeah.
And so I trained even harder. And then 3 months later, I was a blue belt, and all the instructors decided they were going to go on vacation. They were going to Lake Tahoe. So they asked my friend and I if we could teach classes for them. So I'm 14. I've been in class for 3 months. I'm a blue belt. And I taught kids class and adult class. I taught for 2 weeks with my friend, every class. And they came back and they gave me $40, which was really cool. And I think they paid? I got $40. Wow. I think they gave my friend 80.
Let me jump in real quick because listen, we're talking about training decades ago. a question that people might have, as they're listening to you talk about training back in the day, give me an idea, or give the viewers an idea of how do you think martial arts is different now than it was then? What would you say is the biggest difference? Because listen, 14 years old, teaching all the classes. I don't think with labor laws we could do that now. Right?
Right. Well, in my studio, it's not different. It's not much different. I was never a violent instructor. We had some instructors that were pretty gnarly with the kids, and they shouldn't have been. They really shouldn't have been teaching. If that was happening these days, we'd be sued, or we'd be in jail. But I haven't changed anything. So the martial arts for me hasn't really changed at all. And I know everybody talks about it. They talk about, oh, it's softer now and it's easier and you've got to, be nice and nurturing to the kids. Well, they're going to get their benefit from training the right way. They're not going to get the benefit from you saying, oh, well, that's good enough. The beauty of martial arts is that it's black and white. Either it's correct or it's not. There's no in between. There's no kind of in karate. Karate is either one way correct or it's completely wrong. So, of course, you want to encourage people and give them the motivation and teach with positive reinforcement. But that doesn't mean that you change what you teach or how you teach to make a living. You don't want to sell out. Some people think, oh, they'll do better if they just please everybody, and that's not the case. You get better results sticking to your guns and teaching what is right. Like I came into your school, you invited me in, I did a fight seminar, and your students were fantastic. They're all old school. They're all in chin-bei stance. They all were polite. They listened. They sat up tall. They were doing what they were supposed to be doing to create the best learning environment. They had that discipline. They have it. And I have to compliment you on that, because that's, from an outsider looking in, they say, oh, this is really special. What's going on? They'll see it, but they don't know the hard work that goes behind that to get everybody working at that level. And so I really enjoyed working at your school. That was great.
That was great.
So for me, it hasn't changed. Was the best answer.
Yeah, no, and again, it was amazing to have you come into my school, and we had this conversation while you were here, and I remember, kind of talking about it, and Mr. Chikawa is my instructor and was very old school in the respect of tradition and upholding so many things that he carried on from his instructor, and I think that when you say that it's black and white, that there's a, I'm listening, there's, you go this way or you go that way. It's kind of like Mr. Miyagi, you walk on this side of the road, you're okay. You walk on that side of the road, you're okay. Walk down the middle and, squish like grape. But I think that with martial arts, there's been a shift in just like martial arts wasn't really a business, 40, 50 years ago. I mean, that wasn't a thing. You just taught martial arts and you didn't have to focus on the business. And I think this is where it does come into play, because you did mention it, that certain instructors, certain school owners think that you have to do things a certain way to be successful, or to make your business grow by just passing people along. And I think that really diminishes what the martial arts is anyway. And so I think you're right, that we uphold the standards. Go ahead.
Yeah. It also diminishes what you're doing. It takes away from your experience. As a martial artist, you have passion. You live with passion. You teach with passion. And if you're not doing it honestly, then why are you doing it? Right. So, yeah, I agree with you. Absolutely.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about, you trained under the Chuck Norris system, and I've heard so many great stories from my instructor about Chuck Norris. What are your best recollections of training the Chuck Norris system and coming up? We left off at blue belt level when you were teaching at 14, but take us a little bit further through that journey.
Chuck Norris is an amazing instructor. He's an amazing person. I've had some great instructors: Harold Gross, Chuck Norris, Grandmaster Chuck Norris, Grandmaster Pat Johnson, Master Bobby Burbage, but I call him Master. He just stuck with first degree. He said that's enough. One of the best fighters that ever lived. Later on, I had a wonderful instructor, Grandmaster Don Baird, who taught me quite a bit and is still teaching me to this day. But Chuck Norris, the best way I can sum it up is he's professional. He's professional. He's polite. He's tough, but he's very kind, and he has this unique way of letting other people be strong around him, bringing out the best of people, not getting in their way. As far as the growth of his students and the people, his leaders, he's not competitive. He's very he lets people be strong without interfering, which is to have that kind of confidence, to just let other people like do their thing, and you could do it better, but you just let them evolve. That I learned that from him. He's amazing, and on all levels, personally, as well as a fighter, instructor, mentor. He's great.
Yeah, I've only met him a handful of times, 2 times where I actually got to talk with him. And, for someone that is so famous and has done very well and is very successful in the film industry, but when you meet him, what I noticed, every person that shook his hand and every person that met him and took a picture with him, he took that extra 10 seconds or 30 seconds just to ask, what's your name? And tell me, where's your school? And he was just so down to earth, like one of the most humble people that I've ever met to be in his position. And I just thought that was so awesome.
Right. And that's confidence. That's true confidence. I only had him for a little bit. I had him through red belt. He tested me for red belt. And after that, I was a red belt for a long time because of the split of the organizations and stuff like that.
Right.
But I only had him through red belt, and it was great.
And tell me a little bit more, from red belt on, what was what would you say was your biggest sign of growth, and talk a little bit about, where competition came into play, and were you competing even as a lower belt?
I competed right away. As soon as I made my first belt, the purple belt, I competed, like probably a week after. I competed once a week, every week for maybe 2 years. And then after black belt, I would compete sometimes twice a week, every week for another 5 years. So I competed quite a bit. When I first started out, there was a lot of inter-school tournaments. We would work with Grandmaster Ichikawa. We go to his tournament and our school and a few others, smaller tournaments. And those were really fun. And I felt like a big fish, although there were some great competitors that Grandmaster Ichikawa turned out. There were some really great fighters. So I remember going to Culver City Civic Auditorium. I was fighting like one of my first big tournaments. At this time, Ron Ponnell had taken over the studio, and he would pick me up at my house every weekend, and I'd go down and I'd fight. We'd find a tournament, and we'd go and we'd fight. So I ended up taking third place. I lost to Dexter Brooks, and I didn't just lose. I actually got beat. And I've lost before. Everybody loses. You're not going to win everything, but I've never gotten beat. So it was a humbling experience. It was also a great experience for me because I'm not going to give up. What I did was I was done. I look over and I run up and I find Dexter and I sit down with him and I start talking to him. And I said, you're really great. I said, what is it that you do? And he says, you see that guy over there fighting? and I look over, and it's Alvin Prouder, and I didn't know who he was. And he goes, "That's Alvin Prouder." He says, "He's going to win the brown belt division, grand champion." He says, "I won, but he's going to beat me." And I said, "Okay, cool." And he goes, "You see that guy over there?" He said, "That's Barry Gordon. He's going to win grand champion of the whole tournament." And I said, "Oh, wow." And he says, "Well, we all train together. We're BKF, but basically we lock ourselves in, I forget whose garage. Maybe it was Willie Washington's. We lock ourselves in a garage, and we fight like 3-4 hours straight till nobody wants to fight anymore, like for 3 or 4 times a week. Like hard." He says, "We don't spar, we fight." I said, "Oh, that's great." And then Ron Pannell came running up, and I didn't know. I was in the BKF seating area, and back then things were different, but they had their own little area. I didn't know. I didn't even think about it. Mm-hmm. So Pannell goes, "Hey, what are you doing, Tommy?" And he's over there, and he was really close with a lot of the BKF guys. And we started talking, and then Barry Gordon comes up and he looks at me and goes, "Hey, you did really good out there, young man." He says, you didn't win, but you did really good." I'm like, "Oh, thank you." And Pannell started having a conversation with him. And that's when Pannell invited the BKF to come join us at Sherman Oaks for Tuesday night fight class. And that's when the whole, Tuesday night fight class started. So from then on, a lot of those guys, the black belts, they became my instructors. And a lot of the really good brown belts, we all became black belts together, and we kept on fighting. So,
so that was a pretty big transition for you to where you really started to excel when you started training with BKF.
A lot. I mean, we'd always look forward. We train all week long, and we just look forward to fighting. And then I was a fighter. My instructors always told me you have to be a well-rounded martial artist. You have to learn everything. So I did, but I really love fighting. So we always look forward to it. And I would say I walked out of that studio every day bloody, every Tuesday. Like something's bleeding. I got a black eye. I got a bloody nose. I got a split lip. Robert Temple's mostly responsible for that. But I was also living with Ron Pannell at the time. I moved in with Ron Pannell when I turned 17. And Ron took me, I have a great dad. My family is awesome. Ron kind of took me in, and he kind of played dad, taught me how to shave, and he taught me how to do dishes and laundry and stuff like that. So Pannell had this in his head that he says, if we're going to be great, we got to train like professional athletes. So I'm like, yeah, you're right. So he says, okay, from now on, he said, 5 a.m., we're going to run, and we're going to train like Olympic athletes. So he had this whole schedule put together, and we were on it. So that went on for like 2 years or something like that. At the same time, I was training at American School of Martial Arts in Burbank. I came to the conclusion that I'm competitive. If I wanted to win and beat the guys I'm training with, I have to take it a step further. So I found Grandmaster Don Baird in Burbank, and that school, I don't know if you know the Suh brothers, like Ray Suh.
Mm-hmm. I recognize the name.
Ray Suh was an amazing martial artist. I think he was like undefeated, like 30 tournaments in a row. Wow. The Suhs are a family of Samoans, and they were amazing. I knew their cousin Leroy. We used to train in junior high school together, but I saw Don at Master Baird, Don Baird at a tournament. I started talking with him, and we were talking about the school, and I said, "Oh, I'd love to come down there." So I did. So that's been going on. I've been training with Grandmaster Baird since 1978, something like that, 1978. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was, so everything changed for me when I'm at that point, and I started winning quite a bit, and I caught a lot of attention of a lot of people. And then Johnny Gyro, he's like, "Hey, Tom, what are you doing?" We were really close back then. He's like, "Tom, what are you doing?" I said, I'm training in American School of Martial Arts with Master Baird, as well as earning my, trying to get the black belt. And I invited him to come train, and he was part of that group. And he ended up moving in with Pawnell and I. So the three of us trained for like 2 years straight, like Olympic athletes. That's all we did was train martial arts. We only had one day off. What was it? It was Wednesday night. Wednesday night was called Bachelor Delight Night. And Wednesday night, we got to eat any food that we wanted to eat. Other than that, everything was training and fighting for about 2 years. That's all we did. And then later on, I opened the school.
So I'm curious at this time, martial arts is your life, right? I mean, you're training and fighting, and what was going on at school? What were your thoughts about school after high school? Any aspirations of any particular career, or was martial arts always the thing?
Like I played a lot of sports, so I had to make a decision between baseball and karate. And for any kid that's listening out there, education comes first. Get your education. It's number one. You can't go anywhere in life without a good education. I wish I would have gone to college, but I ended up fighting the national circuit instead, just because I was, following my passion. I wish I really would have stayed in the school. So my thoughts on school was, I made a mistake. But I also ended up living a very great life and a very successful martial art career, which is kind of rare these days.
Yeah.
So,
well,
yeah.
My background is similar, that martial arts was always my passion, and going to school was kind of in the background. It wasn't really, a huge priority for me. My parents had different thoughts, or maybe just the way they were brought up. I mean, my dad never graduated high school, actually, but was still very successful in his career and what he did. And my mom raised 3 boys, so even though school wasn't a big deal to them, they still did well. And even though I didn't go to school, I still kind of made it out okay. But, just like you, I'm telling my kids that, and they're probably listening right now, but I've always told them from day one, I said, go to school, because you're going to have more options if you do. If you don't go to school, you're going to be limited on what you can choose from. And I'm very big on choosing what you want to do, not doing something because you have to do it, right? Like the last thing I would want my kids to do is get a job because they have to get a job and then just end up not really loving it, and I've been so lucky to have the career that I've had. Even though school was not my priority at the time, I found other avenues that, put me where I am in this journey. So I'm happy to say that my daughter's graduating college in just a month, 51 days, as she reminded me today.
Congratulations.
And my son is on his way. So they're listening to that advice a little well. And I hope that they see that the opportunities that they have because of that will be greater, and they get to choose what they want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're both lucky. We found our passion at very young ages, and that's what we became. But I would suggest always getting education first. I would definitely advise that for anybody. I really wish I would have done it. It would have helped my career as a martial artist as well. So,
if you had gone to school, what would you, if martial arts was not in the equation, what may have been,
I probably would have played baseball.
Really?
Yeah. I don't think I would have. Maybe I'd make the pros. I'd probably be like a minor leaguer, but I was good. I was a good baseball player.
Yeah. I have some really, really great memories with my son, playing baseball. He played baseball for over 10 years, and it was awesome to watch. But, he one day told me, he said, Dad, baseball is not my passion. I want to play football instead. And so he did that for a little bit.
Really?
Then he did wrestling, but martial arts, I have to say, since he's been 2.5 years old, martial arts has really been his thing. And now he's teaching, and it seems to be a
He
passion of his, but he's got some aspirations for other things.
he's really good. I really like him. I had a chance to meet and judge him in a tournament, and the attitude, and just you did really good. You got wonderful family, wonderful kids, and he's amazing. He's a great martial artist. He's very good, very good.
Thank you. Well, my wife and I have both poured a lot into him, so I can't take all the credit, but they're both, I couldn't be more proud of both of our kids, as I'm sure I know you're proud of your kids as well. We talked a lot about mentorship, Master Baird, Master Ponell, Chuck Norris, right? Mentorship has been a huge part of martial arts. What advice do you give to young martial artists who want to achieve greatness in and out of the school?
Greatness in and out of the school. Well, a lot of people talk about the martial arts and anything like weightlifting or training, and they, with this online thing, they boast, oh, it's so hard, and oh, I'm training so hard, and it's not hard. I mean, you don't have to do any of that. You get to. That's like what you earn the. I mean, you're so lucky that you get out there and train and do your thing. So you have to have passion in what you do. As far as, I don't. You're asking me about just in the school as a martial artist, how you become successful? Is that what you're?
Yeah, I mean, again, advice that you give to young martial artists who want to just achieve greatness in anything that they do. I mean, what's the secret sauce to being great at anything? What would you say?
Well, it's definitely attitude. I teach my kids this way, my students. I don't know if you can see behind me. There's a giant blue mat.
Mm-hmm.
So I sit them down and I tell them, I said, just imagine this mat being a pond of water. And you step into the mat, or you step into the studio, and you're going to create a ripple effect. How you bow, how you sit up, how you treat other people, how you work, your work ethic, how you train. How you help another student. All these things are ripples. All these things are your energy, which you put out, that's going to help your group. You can't do it alone. You need a group. You need to be training with other people on the same path. When you have this, it's perpetual. Everybody grows together. You don't want to step into anything and bring mud into it. You want to bring good. So whether it be life or the martial arts, what you're putting out there, if you do it right, it will help motivate the people around you, and you'll all grow together. If the people around you grow, you're going to just get that much better. So to be a good partner, to be really aware of what you do and how you do it, what you put out there, you're going to get good results if you're a good person. So that would be my best advice.
Yeah, I mean, and I remember you talking about this in a lot of ways in the seminar that you taught here at the school, and just mentioning, how you stand, how you sit. I've heard the quote many times. How you do one thing is how you do everything. That may or may not be, totally accurate, but attention to detail, the people you surround yourself with. I mean, that to me, I think has really been the biggest game changer as far as, where I want to go in life. Because when I was a teenager, if I were to look around at the people that I was surrounding myself, I may still be living in my hometown in Newbury Park and getting in trouble on a Friday night and up to no good, right? But then I chose to surround myself with the people at the martial arts school. And all that did was fuel my passion for teaching martial arts and training more and getting more involved. And then being in that martial arts school gave me the confidence or the opportunity to meet people in the martial arts industry that are now, have multiple schools, doing, great business, lots of students, which I think, in reality impacts our community more. When we can teach more students, we can impact our community. And so just continuing to surround yourself with people that kind of, raise that level. And at the same time, as my level rises, my team, my instructors, my kids, my family, I lift with the tide. I bring my kids and my students along with me as well. And I think that is a really, important part about achieving greatness in any aspect of any area. Now, speaking of greatness, right? You've coached 28 world champions, right? I mean, 28 world champions. What do you think really separates a good martial artist from a great one when it comes to the skill of becoming a champion?
You're not going to believe me when I tell you. I'm a fighter, but it's the forms. It's the forms, and I know everybody resists the forms, but when you're training a form, like I mentioned before, everything's black and white. It's either correct or incorrect. Form is your foundation. It's how you position yourself. In karate, posture is so important. The integrity of your posture for strength, for power, for speed. When you do a form properly, the detail that's required to do it correctly with power teaches your body how to find that center position, much like a recoil of a kick. Every move, every action from every direction has kind of like a recoil and a chambering for another move. And when your body learns this, and it learns it where it's very comfortable, you can do anything with it. So it doesn't really matter, styles don't really matter. The foundation, you're training the foundation and learning to move with that balance and that posture. And I know I'm saying this because most all styles cover all the fundamentals, like, whether it be jabbing, punching, kicking, stances, moving, throwing, grabbing, whatever it is. The foundation is the key. But finding that center, finding that balance point, and that focus, that calmness, putting out all that energy and all that speed, that you can almost see things in slow motion. Like a lot of people move fast, and it makes them blurry moving fast. When you train properly, you can move full speed and everything's still very calm and soft. You can see a lot of things a lot of people don't. Mm-hmm. So, and that also, in fighting, the experience of fighting, you can be calm when you're out there, same kind of thing, but you need a foundation to kind of get to that level. And that would include all your positioning, all your kicks, all your strikes, moving from position to position. So to be a great martial artist, it's the forms, and the forms don't just teach that physical skill. The forms I'm not a traditional martial artist, but I'm a martial artist of culture. So all our culture in Tang Soo Do karate is in our forms and our basics, moving with basic position, our basic testing stuff. And then we like to put the icing on the cake, which is just like, you take whatever works and you learn it, better or, as good as anybody else can do it. Mm-hmm. But our foundation, our whole style lives within our culture, our attention to detail, all that's in the forms. You can't make a real martial artist without. You can make a fighter. You can make a really good fighter, but they'd be a lot better if they learned forms, a lot better, and a lot faster too.
So it's interesting. Of course, Mr. Chikawa is a stickler on basics. I mean, that's just everything you're saying has been so ingrained into my training. I always tell the students, I said, they want to do all the new cool stuff, the tricks or this or that. And I'm like, look, my friend Kevin Kowalczyk coined this, and I've heard him say it many times, that flash is trash without good basics. And so, basics are everything. But then you talk about the attention to detail, and that attention to detail transcends, across the board from your forms to your sparring. We teach a blend of Tang Soo Do and Krav Maga. And Mr. Cox and I have talked many times about, you always watch the Tang Soo Do students that do Krav Maga, and their technique is just a little bit cleaner, maybe not as aggressive, but a little bit cleaner in their kicking and how they throw a punch, right? Now, of course, you take someone that's never done Tang Soo Do and they've got a little more aggression. Okay, maybe you can see that working, but a good solid martial artist with good basics, I think, really sets the tone for being a champion in just about anything, because that attention to detail is there.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're talking about martial arts and talking about being a champion. I mean, that's the top 2%, 1%, and martial arts encompasses a lot more than fighting. And if you're just in a martial arts for fighting, I don't think you're going to make it unless you master some kind of art, whether it be wrestling or boxing or jiu-jitsu. You have to be a master something. Karate, you have to be a master in something to learn what it is to take it to that final level. But martial arts is for everyone. It's not everybody wants to fight in a competitive level. Not everybody wants to be a UFC champion, but they want to know how to defend themselves, and they also want an activity that they can share with other people. They want community. For kids, you want the parent. I mean, we're partners with the parents. The parents trust us to help raise their kids, to give them the right thoughts and insight into the way you look at things and the way, we're partners. So martial arts is fighting is, I love fighting. I love fighting. I don't like to fight. I actually don't like real fights. We used to get in a lot of them when we were younger. I don't like hurting people, but I love fighting. I love the sport of fighting. I love the competition. So I know some people, they like to hurt people. I really don't. I don't. But I like to win. So if it's within the rules and that happens, it happens. It could happen to me too. But so, yeah.
Well, I still have two more questions for you, and I know we talked about getting close to that hour mark. We're getting there pretty quick here. This next question I think is a pretty important one too, because the whole premise of the show has always been motivation, education, and inspiration. This question says, what was your biggest challenge or setback in the martial arts or life, and how did you overcome it?
That's a good question. So I opened my school in 1982, and then just right before COVID, my hip was failing me for a couple of years before COVID, where I was teaching. I was sitting down. I would walk in. I wasn't on a cane yet, but it was pretty bad. And I didn't have the insurance to get it taken care of. And I wasn't able to get my hip fixed. So it got worse and worse. And I wasn't using that leg. And there's a lot of atrophy. My leg got very thin. And it was very, very painful. It was, you see people limping and you don't realize how much pain they're in. You think, oh, it's so sad. They can't walk right. But when it's happening, there's a lot of pain involved. So it just got worse and worse. And finally, I had to close my school. I couldn't teach. I couldn't even stand up. So after that, I was walking around with a cane. And later, if you're in the shopping market, you see me riding around in the wheelchair. So that was my biggest challenge. And I was fortunate enough to have a friend who helped get me taken care of. So I got my hip fixed, and I got to be a white belt again. So that was my biggest challenge. It was horrifying, but I mean, you drive by the beach and you start crying because you can never touch the water again because you can't get across the sand. Like someone would have to carry you to the water. So it was that bad. So having a second chance It's wonderful. When I was a kid, I never had to work for anything. I could see, I mean, as far as martial arts, I could see a technique, I could see a flip, a twist, whatever it was, I could see it and I could feel it and I could do it right away. I didn't have to train at all. It was kind of odd. But now I have to train for everything. And I love it. It's like being a white belt. And I don't, if I trained as hard I trained hard. If I trained as hard back then as I do now, I would have been good. I would have been really good. So that's a blessing. The other thing is now I get to teach again. I have a wonderful student who's the owner of the school that I'm working with, is Lauren Wasserman. And Lauren Wasserman is a fantastic martial artist. And we're on board completely with our vision for martial arts and what we want to get out of our students. So I'm able to live that passion plus training again. This is great. So my biggest challenge turned into be a total blessing, because I think if I didn't go through that, I would have just been taking for granted, oh yeah, I can do this, I can do that. You know, people talk about your past affecting you, like your past being something bad that happened to you can hold you back. You got to let go of the past. Well, you kind of have to let go of the good stuff too sometimes. You can't, like, you get complacent, you rest on your laurels, and you don't grow. So that can be a handicap too. And the fact that I was down to zero, the bottom, really opens your eyeballs. And that's why I say, you know, you don't have to do anything, you get to.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. I 100% agree with that attitude. I have to catch myself sometimes. And I know that I catch it when I hear other people, I have to do this, I have to do that. And it's like, you don't really have to do anything. Like, you don't have to go to the gym. You get to go to the gym. You know, you don't have to come to karate. You get to come to karate. And just
as we get older, we know that way too well.
Yeah. I mean, just that small little shift. Now, so that was your biggest challenge, right? And it was a setback that helped kind of spring you forward. But what was it that really helped you get through that? What, you know, mentally, physically, spiritually, what was it that really pulled you through that? Because, you know, having to start over again, essentially, is what you're saying. What got you there?
The second I could stand up and I could walk again, I mean, I park my car like down the street now just so I can walk where I have to be. Just the fact that I can walk, I get excited. I guess I'm happy. But now I get to train. I can demonstrate. I can do my martial arts is, you know, getting back up there. It's pretty good. I did promise the doctor I wouldn't fight again. He's like, hey, look, we're going to do this, but you can't fight. I'm like, I mean, okay. But it's not overcoming that. It's not overcoming it was just taking care of the root issue. And after that, it's been a joy. I'm really enjoying, I'm loving it. Yeah.
Well, it's obvious when you get out on the mat, that energy that you bring to the class is really second to none. I was just taking a ton of mental notes as I watched you teach that class, and I could just listen to what you were talking about just very intently. Guys, we're getting ready to wrap up here with one more question. I know there's quite a few viewers out there. If you guys have any questions for Mr. Bloom, would love to hear. If you're watching right now, or if you're watching later on the replay, throw some questions in the comments. But if you're watching, if you have a question, please comment now. My last question is, after all of your achievements, what is the legacy that you want to leave behind in martial arts and in life? I think you froze up on me for just a second, so let's see if we get you back. There we go, Mr. Abbott. How are you, sir? There he is. We're back. We froze for a minute, but did you hear the question?
No, I didn't. No.
Okay, we'll try it again. So the question was, after all of your achievements, what is the legacy that you want to leave behind in martial arts and in life?
In life, it's my children. I have a wonderful son, Bo Bloom, retired Marine. He works security, and a beautiful daughter. She's 14, Charlotte, and she's in high school. She's smart. She knows herself. Both my kids really know themselves. They know who they are, and they know what they're about, and they stick to it. I'm very proud of them. So that's my legacy in life. And I'd say my students also fall into that category, because, you know, your students become family in a sense, you know, not your immediate family, but my legacy, what I would like to just like if I was gone and people were thinking about me, I would like them to know in their heart that I helped them express themselves and be able to live life with more passion, to actually go for it in life. But as an example, to be a good person. So there's a lot there, but as a father, that would be my greatest legacy, are my children.
Awesome. Well, hey, listen, thanks for all your time today. Thanks for just spending an hour with me and talking about martial arts and life and your journey. I appreciate that. And I just appreciate all that you've done and the influence that you had on me. You know, I wrote an essay, I think, for one of my higher degree black belts. And I don't know if I ever got a chance to really share it with you. But as I was mentioning, all of these instructors that came along the way for me, that Mr. Chikawa, Mr. Cox, Brian Nan, the list goes on and on and on. You know, you and Cecil Peoples were two people that I named in that essay that I never really got a chance to take a class with you. But, you know, with Marcus Brown going to those tournaments back when we were kids,
Yeah.
I always remember so well just kind of your voice in the background and just kind of, you know, just a look. And I think that people sometimes forget that just because you're not someone's instructor, just because you're not with that person all the time, the amount of impact that you can have just by your example, just by who you are and what you do, made such an impact in my life. And so I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you. And it's great that you mentioned Grandmaster Cecil Peoples. He's actually the only hero I've ever had besides my father. He's the only hero I've ever had. A true martial artist, someone I've always aspired to work to that level and to become a better person, is through his example. So thank you.
Yeah, awesome stuff. Well, hey guys, that's it for the first episode of Master Motivation back in 2025 after taking a year of a layoff. But I'll be back again next week. I think we're going to be doing Thursdays at 10 a.m. I'm going to share this video later, and I hope that you will too. Master Bloom, have a great day. I'll catch up with you a little bit later.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys, go out and make it a great day. We hope that we have motivated you, educated you, and inspired you today. Go be the best version of yourself. Have a great one.